Hello and welcome to On the Fly, a Financial Literacy Institute podcast. Tonight, I am your host, Zachary Owen. Alongside me, my co-host, Oli Nkafamadu, as well as our star tonight, Sean Lacey, the CEO and founder of the Financial Literacy Institute. Gentlemen, hope we've all had a good week this week. This is part 3 of our 3-part series into kind of our lives, our pasts and futures of how we got into finance and where we plan to go. So today is all about Sean. We want to get into Sean's who, what, when, where, and why of his finance journey up to now and where he wants to go. So we're going to jump right into it. Sean, give us a little bit of an overview about you. Who is Sean Lacey, so the listeners know who we're talking to?
Absolutely. Thank you, Zach. Thank you for the glowing introduction as well. So I guess I kind of want to preface my entire story by like a moniker of it. So and this also will, I guess, segue into the book I eventually want to write. But the way I guess, found my purpose has been truly on accident. So my title for the book, and hopefully no one steals this once they hear it, but is going to be called Accidental Purpose. And the background behind that in a general sense is that basically everything that's kind of happened in the last like 5 to 8 years of my life, I've had a vision and I've had a goal. And like through my intentions with that, I've had an idea of where I want to go, but I've had these unintended consequences, which is something we talked about on a previous podcast episode. But in my path to pursuing what I thought was my goal, the unintended consequences ended up being better than what the actual goal was. And so, what I mean by that is my involvement in real estate, my involvement in sales, my involvement in the construction industry, and even my involvement in finance have all kind of happened by accident. So let's kind of rewind to like young Sean Lacey, like when I was in elementary school type of thing. So I guess, shoot, when I was probably like 5 or 6 years old, I wanted to be a teacher. And that was like my biggest goal ever. And my mom will tell these stories all the time where when I was that age and like my sister was a couple years younger, I would quote unquote play school. I dress up in like a suit and tie, set up a classroom in our basement for my sister, and like teach class to my sister. And I guess how that translates is like what we do here at FLI is we're educating, we're teaching. And as the years progressed, I realized, okay, I don't necessarily want to be a teacher because I don't want to work in like a high school type of thing. I didn't really understand like college professors at that age, but then I started to understand like, okay, I love like Legos were my favorite thing to play with when I was a kid. So in terms of Legos, that kind of drew me to like building houses, and I was interested in architecture. And I was like, okay, I want to be an architect for like a home designer or home builder. I love houses. I love being around construction type of stuff like that. And I love design. So I started digging into architecture. I'm like, this is great. But then I realized like, okay, architects don't necessarily make that much. And the work is it's very abstract, and it didn't necessarily fit what I wanted to do. But the correlation to architecture now shows up where I'm at right now with my involvement in real estate, my involvement in the construction industry, where I'm working with architects, I'm working with design engineers. So as the architecture ship kind of sailed away when I got into my freshman and sophomore year of high school, I realized, okay, let's look into engineering. And as I was looking into engineering, my dad's an engineer, he does design. So I had the opportunity to go do a co-op at his company after my freshman year of college, where I got to see like product testing, I got to see design, and I realized I didn't want to sit in front of a computer for 8, 9 hours a day and just draw stuff on CAD, Creo, SolidWorks, whatever. So the design ship kind of sailed a little bit because, when I was that age, I was like, I want to work for Goodyear, I want to work for Honda, I want to work for GM, I want to work in the automotive industry. I love cars, and I wanted to be a part of the process of designing and creating new cars, kind of like what Zach and then our other friend Owen do. And as I got to see what the design aspect was like, it really kind of turned me off from it. And I guess a segue from my love of cars goes into my detailing business, which we'll touch on in a little bit too. But after I figured out, okay, I don't want to do cars, I did a co-op in a manufacturing facility, extrusion, rubber, process engineering. I realized, okay, this is not fun because I'm not really talking to people. I'll talk to, the techs or the like service workers on the like production lines during the day, but that really like didn't like catch my social bug type of thing. So after I realized that's not what I wanted to do, I was presented with a great opportunity from a good friend of mine, Kevin Smith, as part of the Leadership Institute through the College of Business and College of Engineering at Akron. And Kevin pointed me towards Mike Green, who is the president and owner of the company Air Control Products that I work for now. And I sat down with Mike, had a meeting. He basically told me what he was looking for on the engineering side. And it was something I had never thought about before. But it was a application engineer role where I basically give presentations. I get to talk to people every day. I get to share my knowledge and be a subject matter expert. So, that kind of took my interest in sales, my interest in business, and my interest in just being a social person and combined it with engineering. So, I guess long story short with that, that's what I do now. And I couldn't be happier. But I think that the reason I'm at where I'm at now was because of those past experiences that, in a roundabout way, pointed me towards this job in the HVAC industry and in the construction industry, where when I was 5 years old and I wanted to be a teacher, and then when I was in junior high and I wanted to be an architect, it kind of combines those type of things. So in my long-winded explanation, where I'm at right now has been what my goals were many years ago, but not in the path that I expected to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good way to get where you want to be. I think, any of our listeners who are in high school, who are in college, and are trying to figure out, what they want to do, where they want to be, uh, need to follow that same picture that Sean has painted, right? So you just heard Sean, he tried what, 5, 6 different things uh, throughout high school and college that he didn't like, right? You learn a lot more from your failures than your successes. You learn a lot more from what you don't like rather than what you do. Chances are you're not going to find a job or find a subject that you like immediately and hit it off. And you have to try a few to find out what you do like. So it sounds like, Sean, you are in a place that you like a lot, and you've definitely worked hard to build the path that got you to where you are today. So a lot of the purpose, I think, of this series, right, where we talk about our past, present, and future, is that we want to give the listener something of value, right? Whether it's entertainment, whether it's motivation, or just something to relate to, right? So, Sean, was there kind of a specific event or experience that piqued your interest in finance, or was it kind of a combination of a couple things?
So this is the question I was looking forward to the most, and it's that light bulb moment that we've talked about a few times before. And I've talked to you guys about this before, so you already know the answer. But for those listening, my light bulb moment honestly was like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, after I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And every time I listen to the Bigger Pockets podcast, when they ask like, "What's the book your number one real estate book?" 90% of people say Rich Dad Poor Dad. But what that book has taught absolutely changed my mindset on life altogether. In terms of real estate, in terms of business ownership, like that book was the sole reason why I decided to start and turn luxury auto detailing into a legitimate business versus just some side hustle that I ran under the table. I saw the benefits of having a company where you have asset protection through like an LLC, but also as a way for expenses, tax savings, all of like the whole 9 yards in that aspect. So definitely reading Rich Dad Poor Dad is the moment that changed my outlook on life and my outlook on finance. And it prompted me to dig into a lot of different things more, including taxes, including asset protection, including sales, really like the mindset type of things that go into being successful financially, but also successful on the business ownership side.
Right. Great points. So, kind of another thing that maybe our listeners could benefit from or learn from throughout your experiences, is there anything that you would tell someone who's kind of a beginner or novice in their financial journey that you think would have helped you in the past or that you wish you knew?
Absolutely. Step one is invest in yourself. Before you invest in anything else, invest in yourself. And that really comes down to, I guess I'll piggyback this off of Nick Chuma's episode where we talked about mind, body, spirit. It really comes down to what you feed your mind, what you feed your body, and what you feed your spirit. Because I'm a full believer or a firm believer that good things happen to good people. And if you're good to those that are around you, good things are going to come to you. It's the reciprocating, I guess, aspect of life where if you pay it forward to somebody and you don't expect anything in return, chances are down the road, some good things are going to come back to you. And that's the way I try to live my life. But in terms of getting started from kind of square one, invest in books, invest in courses, invest in watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts. Most of this stuff is free, or it can be done for free. You can get a library card and you can take out books and you can try to read one book a month. You can listen to podcast episodes when you're driving instead of listening to music. You can watch YouTube courses that are free. It doesn't cost money to do this. Obviously, you can pay money, you can level up quicker, but if you're starting from square one and you have no money, you can do it with no money.
Great points.
That's really good. And I actually want to go even like a level deeper into, like, let's say college, right? What did Sean Lacey go through in college? What did he sacrifice? Because I remember when we talked about briefly, your story, when we did kind of our surface level podcast, I think 2 podcasts ago, if not 3 podcasts ago, and you were talking about how you didn't go out and party crazily. You sacrificed X, you sacrificed Y, you sacrificed Z, right? Can you talk about what you had to sacrifice to get to where the Sean Lacey is today? Because I think for a lot of listeners, it really is delayed gratification. You took a lot out of your college, experience to get to where you are today, but that required sacrifice. So what were some of those things when Sean Lacey was back in his college days?
Delayed gratification is key. I talk to my friends now who are out of college and they say, oh, I'd give anything to go back to college. Like, I miss my college days so much. And I think about it, I'm like, college was pretty solid, but I don't miss it because what I'm doing now is basically the same thing as when I was in college, minus schoolwork and homework, which took up a nice bulk of time and I hated it. And like, the only classes I really enjoyed, sorry to the engineering school, but I enjoyed my business classes more than my engineering classes because I got more out of them that I use on a daily basis. And that's not saying that that's the case for everybody, but besides that point, I guess the big thing in college, it ultimately came down to delayed gratification and trying to ignore the basic urges of trying to be just like everybody else and kind of follow the crowd type of thing. And that's not to say that I didn't have fun. I didn't party. I partied probably more than I should have, but somehow, some way, I managed to go to bed by midnight and be up at 6 a.m. to work out and go to work the next morning. But in essence, I worked at least 40 hours a week, no matter the situation, whether I was in class, whether I was in co-op or on my co-ops. But when I was on my co-ops, I would work 40 hours a week at my engineering job. And then I would come home from that, I'd get a workout in, and then I'd make dinner and take dinner down to the leasing office at the apartment I worked in. And I would eat dinner while I was sitting in the leasing office, sending emails, sending out leases, making phone calls, and trying to sell apartments because I knew the more apartments I sold, the more money I was going to get in terms of commission. So I was pulling 40 hours a week at both jobs, and somehow, some way, I still managed to sleep 6.5, 7 hours a night, but also work out, maintain a healthy lifestyle. So it was really about being as efficient as humanly possible. And efficiency, I think, is something that engineers in particular think about all the time, because in our jobs, our goal is to do two things. Our goal is to solve problems and do them and find solutions efficiently. So if we can be efficient in our time, whether that's, doing homework and saying, okay, I have an hour to do this homework assignment, I need to make sure I'm done with it in an hour. Or I have an hour to work out, I have 45 minutes to work out, making sure you follow a strict schedule. And I would honestly say that my schedule is the biggest reason why I was able to do what I did, because I would aggressively block out all of my time based on what I knew I needed to do. I didn't give myself free time because I knew if I had open-ended time for certain things, I wouldn't follow them specifically, and I would bleed into other time that I was supposed to do something on my to-do list, so on and so forth. So with that, even the times I did party and have fun and hang out with my friends, I blocked that out on a time slot. And I said, I have 3 hours to do this. Once 3 hours is up, I have to go do something else. So scheduling out my time is huge. And just trying to maximize that delayed gratification and work as much as I possibly could. And I think that's the big reason why I was able to, I guess, fire on high cylinders while I was in college.
Yeah, so that's a great bit of story, right? So you're, if you're listening still at this point, thank you very much. We appreciate you. But you just listen to Sean talk and kind of struggle to come up with what he has sacrificed, right? And it all comes down to being very efficient with your time. And that's something I've been focusing on myself recently. So, I mean, there's a lot of things, right? You can schedule your time to become more efficient. But I think the most common thing is people just wasting time, right? So, I know myself, I waste a ton of time on my phone, and I've been very conscious of that, right? So I've taken all the little social media apps that, uh, I burn time on, like Instagram or whatever. I would take it and I just move it and I'd hide it in a folder. And I'd find myself 4 times a day just absentmindedly flicking open my phone and pressing the blank space without thinking where Instagram used to be, and be like, oh my God. So if you're still listening, go check your phone and look at, if you have an iPhone, look at the screen time settings. You'll be blown away, by how much time you actually spend on your phone. So I think
And that's not saying too that I don't waste time on my phone, because I definitely do. And there are still ways that I could be more efficient,
right.
and things that I'm working on. I'm not saying by any means that I'm perfect and I do everything the exact right way. I've definitely wasted time. I've definitely, done things I'd say I wish I wouldn't have, like, later on. But it's all part of the learning experience, though,
No, it
and kind
totally
of
is. I
iteration.
totally agree. But I think the average human is so more inefficient than they realize that, with any sort of organization or, any measures or actions you take to increase your efficiency, you too can still burn some time on your phone. You can work 40 hours a week, be in school, and still have time to have fun, party, everything Sean's doing, right? So I think efficiency is a big one there. So
And one other thing too, I wanted to touch on, one of, like, the things that's opened my eyes up into how to manage your time better is doing things that serve multiple areas of your focus at the same time. So what I mean by that, and all of my friends from college, and Zach, you probably would attest to this too, but anytime, like, I would throw parties at my apartment, I would use that as an opportunity to sell apartments. Because, like, when I get a few drinks in me, I like my salesman level just skyrockets. So I'd have people over to my apartment. They're like, wow, this is so nice. I'm like, let me tell you about it. And let me tell you how you can have one just like this. And then, like, I don't know, I should have clocked in during all my parties, because I sold so many apartments from that. But even now, like, if I'm driving, I use my driving time as quality time. I use it to make phone calls. I use it to listen to podcasts, listen to content, so that while I'm driving, I could just be chalking that up as wasted time. And I send emails while I'm driving too, which don't tell my mom. But I use that as, like, a kind of a way of multitasking, but where my focus is on the thing that brings the most value.
Yeah, multitasking is uh, along with being efficient, is a very big part of being productive and using your time efficiently, right? That's huge in not wasting your time. And with any sort of measures you take, you can drastically increase the efficiency you use your time with, right? You can simple things like scheduling out your day, right? We've kind of talked about this before. I, as well as Sean, instead of just making a simple to-do list, take it one step further and kind of schedule out the time which we allow ourselves to have to complete a certain task. And you may find that in using this method, you will be more efficient in less time because of the natural barrier you form for yourself. Well, I have to get this done in this amount of time, or I have to do it some other time. It's going to bleed in something else. So working on a schedule was definitely a good way to increase your efficiency. So,
and it's like that third party kind of accountability coach. You know, you get those notifications on your phone that say in 15 minutes this is starting, and you're like, oh wow, I'm not done with what I was supposed to do or for the first time slot. I better finish this up in 15 minutes so I can start the next thing.
Exactly. So we've kind of gotten through a bit of your past, Sean, and kind of where you have been that has brought you to where you are today. Can you give us a little summary of where you are now and what you're trying to work on in the present to set yourself up for the future?
Absolutely. So I'm on the same mindset as Yinka, where the decisions I make now are for 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And that's kind of been the state I've been in probably since I started college. So I like to break my life up, and I break my goals up into a few different areas. Like I have my financial focus, I have my family focus, my mental focus, my physical like activity focus, my business, and then my work focus. And like my goals that are behind my computer right now are broken up into those categories because that's how I will segment off my life. And there's kind of subcategories and everything with that too. But where I'm at now is really in that building stage. I understand that, you know, in your 20s, you have more energy than you're going to have in your 30s. You have more time than you're going to have in your 30s. And more freedoms, so to speak. You know, once you start to hit 30, you know, you may have kids, you may have more responsibilities on the family aspect. But until that time, my goal is to work as hard as I possibly can, do as much as I possibly can, and build, whether it's businesses, whether it's organizations, just build a foundation for the next 40 years of my life. And that focuses on, you know, working at my day job and trying to sell as much as I can, trying to build my income on that level, because as we've talked about before, there are two ways that you can, you know, increase your wealth. You either make more money, you spend less money. I will well admit that I have a champagne taste and I enjoy nice things. So in order to do that, I need to have things that make me money. My day job is one aspect. My detailing business is another aspect. My real estate is another. Financial Literacy Institute will be another. So like having multiple streams of income are a huge focus for me. And also the relationships are key too, because I want to build relationships now that are going to set me up for the future. And it's going to be relationships where we help each other and we can build off of each other. You know, I love working with both of you because you guys have strengths that I don't have, and I have strengths that you don't have, and we can complement each other, but also learn things from each other. And I think that's the biggest aspect of surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded and may have similar goals or goals that are even a little bit slightly different, but it can open your eyes to things maybe you're not focusing on enough, and maybe even provide different avenues for income, different avenues for business, and different avenues for success.
Love it. Phenomenal. So you mentioned a couple goals that you know have on your board. Do you have one goal for a certain timeline, maybe the next year, next 5 years? If you have one goal that you depict that is kind of your priority, what is it?
So I'll start it this way. My priority for 2022 is to earn a gross income of over 6 figures. So that's like goal number one. Every morning I wake up, that's what I think about. You know, if I look at like my goals on a daily basis, my goal is to lift every single day. And whether it's, you know, a lifting weights workout, a cardio workout, playing basketball, having some form of physical activity that chalks up as a workout. Um, in terms of like, you know, monthly goals, my goal, I want to read 12 books in a year, which breaks out to one book a month. My goal is to pray every single night. My goal is to get 7 hours of sleep a night. I can break it into my business goals in terms of revenue, in terms of getting vehicles done or detailed for the year. In terms of real estate, my goal starting in 2020 was to buy one house a year. Now I'm in the process of doing two this year, which I didn't think was possible, but now it's opened my eyes into kind of how you can scale up your goals. But a big thing too that I work with on my goals, and this is something that Ed Milet talked about in his Bigger Pockets podcast episode, was do one more. If you have something you're trying to do, maybe you're lifting and you're repping out on the bench, your reps for that set are 10. If you do 11, chances are you're going to want to do 12. Like, by doing just one more, it compounds, just like the book The Compound Effect talks about. By doing one more, it builds on it, and then before you know it, you do 5 more, 10 more, and you're able to scale up so much quicker.
I love all that. That's beautiful. Wow.
So, Sean, we talked a lot about the hard work you put in, and we've also talked about celebrating our successes. Have you celebrated any successes lately, or is that something you might need to work on?
Oh, it's definitely something I need to work on. Everyone, or a lot of people tell me like that I need to have fun more. And back to what I talked about earlier in terms of, doing things that I guess can complete focus on multiple areas. I have fun when I golf, but I get to golf for work. I get to golf, when I'm hanging out with my friends. So I'll use fun activities that also relate to work so that it's kind of killing two birds with one stone type of thing. Like, I went to the Indians game last night with one of my coworkers and a customer. I was having fun, but it was also work related. Some people may say that like you want to separate your work and fun. I disagree. I think that they should be combined because if you enjoy having fun with people you work with, it makes work so much better. And that's something that I'm blessed with at the company I work for, because not only is our goal to, do a great job and be a great company and produce phenomenal results, but we want to be easy to do business with. And being easy to do business with ties into relationships, but also ties into being able to have fun. So I love having fun with my customers at work. I love having fun with my detailing customers. I love merging things together because you're checking multiple boxes at the same time. But in
Phenomenal.
terms of
Great
like
point.
vacations, I went to Florida in May, so like I did take a vacation. Circumstances of it weren't necessarily ideal, but it is what it is. Sometimes you have to take a vacation by yourself, and it definitely was like a good mental refresher for myself. It opened my eyes. But even, we have our friend Owen's wedding in Virginia, so we're going to go to DC. We're going to take an extra day. It took some prodding by Zach's fiance, Lindsay, to get me to agree to it. But I said, you know what? I'm not going to schedule a detailing appointment after a weekend away. I'm just going to go to DC and have fun. And then even for Zach's wedding down in Florida, stay in a couple extra days to enjoy and get away a little bit. So it's something I'm working on. It's on my personal development list.
Gotcha. Very good. Yeah, that's a couple things I'm looking forward to as well. So we touched on this earlier as well. What is your favorite book or one book that you would recommend involving personal finance?
So involving personal finance, I have to say Rich Dad Poor Dad. But I'll say that as part one, or I guess there's 1A and 1B. So 1A is Rich Dad Poor Dad because it opens your eyes to owning assets and real estate and business ownership. You see it kind of from a more of like an on paper type of view, if that makes sense. But the other one is Think and Grow Rich, and that kind of tackles it on the mindset standpoint. So I'm a very analytical person. I see numbers. I love numbers. I break my life down based on numbers. That's why I love Rich Dad Poor Dad, because it kind of gives you a roadmap of how you can do things. Think and Grow Rich, on the other hand, is more of a mindset. putting yourself in the mindset of someone that is wealthy, because basically the premise of the book is that if you think it and you believe it, and in terms of wealth, you can achieve it. So that's kind of what I've used to like set goals. That's what I've used to build my mindset around what I want my next 30 years to look like.
Right. And then kind of as we wrap up here, another question I wanted to ask Sean is, we are on the On the Fly podcast, a Financial Literacy Institute podcast. Where and when did you kind of come up with the inspiration for the Financial Literacy Institute?
Phenomenal question. And this is one too that we honestly haven't talked about before. So I'm glad that you ad-libbed this too, because it takes some thinking on my end too to figure it out. But I think the reason why is just the need and the lack of financial awareness around people our age. I've talked to people that don't know how to write a check, that don't understand what taxes are, that don't understand that like how loans affect your credit, how even what credit is. It's based on the premise that there's a lack of financial knowledge in young adults, and it's only getting worse. And it should be taught in school. I think we're taking the right steps to getting it taught in school, but as our mission statement is, our goal is to teach the financial literacy skills that you should have learned in school. And it's really built on the premise that it's that we are all capable of being financially literate. And it's not that difficult. You just have to put in a little bit of time and talk to the right people. And I want us and the Financial Literacy Institute team to be those people and to be that voice that helps, your average college student or your average high school student understand that I don't need to doctorate. I don't need to even go to college. I don't need like these special skill sets to be financially literate and wealthy.
Awesome.
100%.
Well, Sean, I'm really glad you did have the motivation to start the FLI, because I sure am having a blast being involved with it. It's great to teach people the financial literacy skills we should have learned in school. So as you wrap up here, Sean, thank you so much for your time.
One more thing too.
Yeah.
I do, and honestly, I want to give Yinka a lot of credit too for his part
Yes,
in
definitely
helping start the Financial Literacy Institute, because I had this idea for the longest time. And like Yinka talked about in his podcast episode, I mentioned it in a speech I was giving at the university, but at that time, all it was a logo on a PowerPoint and an idea in my head. Nothing had really been put down on paper and actually talked about. And Yinka and I had these discussions, and we started verbalizing and even putting on paper what the Financial Literacy Institute was supposed to be and what we wanted to do with it. So, I mean, Yinka's is as much of a founder as all of us, but what he did to kind of, I guess, put my ass in gear type of thing, and even hold me accountable for it was huge to getting us to where we're at now. Because I know I couldn't do this by myself, and the help that both of you provide and the input, and it's helped us reach levels that I didn't initially think was possible. And now, as we talked about during our EOS session, we're shooting for the moon. Like, there are things that the goals we set now, we may think that, oh, there's no chance we hit these. But just like on the real estate side, on my personal end, like I thought I was going to buy one house. Now I'm buying two. Who knows? It might be three. We could say our revenue goals and we end up doubling, tripling it, whatever. Just between the power of all of us together, along with the rest of like the ambassadors and our members in the Discord, building a community like this, the sky's the limit for what we can do and the people we can help.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really like the story of how you and Yinka met. Yinka showed up to the speaking event and stuck around and got dinner and talked to you. It's a great story. So, yeah, thank you both. This is definitely awesome to be a part of the Financial Literacy Institute. So, Sean, where can our listeners find you on social media?
On social media, I'm at Sean Lacey 7 on all platforms. and then also Sean Lacey on LinkedIn. You'll see my headshot. And then also check out thefli.net. Check out our website. Check out our podcast On the Fly on Spotify. You'll hear this episode along with a bunch of other sweet guests that we have in the upcoming weeks, which I'm more than excited to get these episodes recorded. But make sure you check us out on Instagram and check out our podcast, because the knowledge that our guests bring is absolutely insane.
Definitely. Yinka, what about you? Where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, just my first name, last name, only Kafamadu on LinkedIn.
Gotcha. And you can find me on all platforms at ZOwen22, including LinkedIn. You'll see my headshot there looking very spiffy in a suit. So, listener, thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to On the Fly, a Financial Literacy Institute podcast.
Y'all take care.